This is Ethan Tapper, the Chittenden County Forester, and I'm out here at the Hinesburg Town Forest to tell you a little bit more about our upcoming forest management project. So one of the ways that the approach we're taking here at the Hinesburg Town Forest differs from what you may think about what logging is and what forest management is that we're employing an approach called ecological forestry or ecological forest management. What we do is we base the way that we manage our forests on how forests naturally grow and develop. So we look at old forests, we look at unmanaged forests, and then we look at the way that forests change over time, and we use the management work that we do to mimic natural disturbances and the natural processes that occur in the forest. And so the benefits of this is that we are managing forests for an array of different conditions that they've been adapted to for thousands of years, managing them in a way that supports more biodiversity because we're creating these processes that all of our native organisms are adapted to, having the humility to say, okay, so this is how forests work, and if we're going to be managing them, we're going to be managing them within the context of how they work, and trying to do so in a way that's the kindest, the gentlest, and the most respectful to not just the beautiful forest products that we want to harvest, but also to this incredible volume of life that is the forest. So one thing that we're doing to try and make the forest management that we do more ecologically beneficial is that we're not just saying that every time a tree gets big and valuable that we're going to harvest it. Now, here at the Hinesburg Town Forest, we're blessed with a forest that's been managed really well. And so there are lots of big, beautiful trees that we are going to harvest. And I've talked about in past videos about how the management that we're doing is going to include some harvesting of especially large ash trees, but also large sugar maple and black cherry and other species. And we can do that because we have a forest that has a lot of big trees. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to harvest all the big trees and in doing so lose the benefits of big trees in the woods. We want to leave big trees in the woods for a bunch of different reasons. What we're doing is, in the course of the management work that we're doing, we are designating trees that we're calling legacy trees or biological legacy trees, which are going to remain here forever. And for this project, for sort of our visualization, I'm actually labeling those legacy trees with an L. So when you go out into the Hinesburg Town Forest and you see the trees that are labeled with L's, it doesn't mean that that tree is a loser or anything else. It means that it's a legacy tree, it's not going to be cut, and in fact, it's going to be retained in perpetuity. And what that tree is going to be doing for the forest is being a big tree. So providing unique habitats that big trees provide. They have these complex canopies, they have complex bark structure, they support tons of different organisms which are not supported by smaller trees. We also know that these big trees are hubs in mycorrhizal networks, these underground fungal networks that are part of how trees both extract nutrients from the soil and also connect to one another. And we know that they connect between different species of trees, we know that they connect between different generations of trees, and that they're able to pass resources and to communicate through these underground networks. Big trees have many more connections than smaller trees, and so these big trees are a really important part of this network. And we know that this network is a part of how forests function and also what makes them resilient over time. So leaving big trees in the woods, while it may not make sense from a financial perspective because many of these trees also have a lot of commercial value, it is part of how we're going to manage our forests using a holistic approach, recognizing that the value of forests is not just their economic value, but is also their value in the ways that they support our lives, by supporting biodiversity, by sequestering and storing carbon, by providing habitat for wildlife. So as we manage them, it's really, really important that we do so in a way that treats them as whole systems and that tries to work within forests to make them more healthy and more resilient. With ash, our legacy tree approach is a little bit different. So we're assuming that almost all the ash trees within the next couple decades in the Hinesburg Town Forest are going to die. We hope that we'll have some genetic resistance. We'll hope that we have what we call lingering ash. But most of the ash trees that we're leaving right now are trees that we're planning on leaving in perpetuity. So almost, if you see an ash tree that's not marked, you can almost assume that it's a legacy tree. Leaving ash legacy trees is really important because if we were to cut all the ash, we would never know if any of our trees have genetic resistance, and also because we want to continue to actually regenerate ash, to have ash trees that are throwing seed, and to try and create more ash regeneration across the landscape, with the hope that that'll give us more time to either come up with something that's going to help us address emerald ash borer and to deal with that problem in the future, or that we'll find some genetic resistance to emerald ash borer in future generations of ash trees.